Hello, friends, and welcome to Coach Cuts Corner. Streaming bright from Michigan's capital city, this podcast is dedicated to helping you better understand the who, the what, and the why of mental performance, personal growth, and Lansing Stars baseball. Coach Cuts Corner, brought to you by Eyewash.
In collaboration with Lansing Community College.
And now here's your host, Stephen Cutter.
Welcome to Coach Cuts Corner, where we challenge limits, push for greatness, and develop athletes who thrive on and off the field. We've built a program centered on discipline, self-belief, and relentless preparation. Each week, I bring you insights from my coaching journey, conversations with high performers, and lessons that drive winning habits. If you're serious about growth, whether as a player, coach, or leader, you're in the right place. Let's get after it. Today, I'm excited to have our co-host and assistant coach here with the Stars, Jeff Allen, back on the show. Jeff, how you doing today?
I am doing phenomenal. Sunshine in the capital city. Snow's all melted. Can't beat it.
That's very true. We're going to talk today about reflection, why it's so critical, the pros and the cons to it, and how we can use it to keep growing. After that, we'll pivot to a quick recap of our spring trip in Mississippi. Jeff, let's start with your take on reflection. How do you define it, and why do you think it matters?
Well, I think reflection is definitely one of the most important parts of growth. You know, it's hard to grow from anything if you're not reflecting on what's been positive and what's been negative through it. Mm-hmm. I guess I think that it matters just because, like, you have to know what obstacles you faced and overcome, and if you have failed with those obstacles, what caused you to fail, you know, and just being able to kind of attack it with a plan rather than just accepting it and then just kind of repeating the same thing, because I feel like we're kind of habitual creatures as humans.
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, and if you don't have a plan, you're just, like I said, you're just going to repeat it, and that's the definition of insanity right there.
So true. And exactly, it's a deliberate process of looking back on your experiences so we can move forward more effectively and hopefully more efficiently. Let's dive into some of the ways we can reflect. And I really think about, the first thing that comes to mind is journaling. It's such a great way to be able to reflect. I use it a lot, not only in baseball, but in life, to go back to certain places and times, different points of the year, in season for us, out of season, different points in my life, and say, okay, this is what I was thinking at this point. And might have been what I was worried about, and it all worked out. Yeah. We also use team debriefs, which I like to call well, better, hows. We will definitely, after games, practices, we'll talk about what we did well, what we need to do better, and then the biggest thing, which is action, how we're going to do that. And then, of course, I think the third thing when I think about reflection is mindfulness, the ability to just be able to come back to center. And for me, a quick journaling session after practice or games goes a long way. I also like chatting with people that I trust, and coaches in general that have shared the journey that you're currently in. It's a little perspective from another person that can usually bring a lot of clarity. Yeah. Let's break down the benefits. For me, reflection builds self-awareness. It's how I spot patterns in my coaching or my personal habits. How do you see it? What's your breakdown of the benefits?
I think the benefits, kind of like what you were touching on in the last part there, is bringing yourself back to center, just kind of being where your feet are. I feel like reflecting and going over what I'm grateful for through my journey has helped me a lot with that, because like we talk about a lot, it's not always going to be sunny and 75, but we still grow through those situations where it's not like that. So I think that being able to look back even on the times where you thought everything was very difficult and see what you grew in that situation, I think that has helped me a lot. I think that on the opposite side of that, I've been very critical of myself at times, and before, kind of maturing, I fell into the habits of, reflecting on it and then it not putting action towards it, and it just kind of becomes dwelling on it, and it's not very positive. It doesn't help you grow a whole lot in those situations.
And I hope that we can talk about that as we get into some of the cons of reflection as we kind of step through this. And I love what you say, because absolutely it adds that extreme help if you can learn from your mistakes. Yeah. And rather than getting hung up on the fact that something maybe went wrong, you start asking why, and that transforms a setback into a valuable lesson. Yeah. And that reminds me of what Marcus Aurelius said: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And that's exactly what reflection does. It keeps the focus on what we can control, our mindsets and our response, rather than dwelling on external factors. And it also does something like the pros of it can reduce stress if you're going through your experiences somewhat methodically. It frees your mind from replaying them endlessly. Instead of regret or worry, you move on with what we like to talk about a lot, which is action or a plan. Let's get into the cons of reflection. Because as great as reflection is, there's an enormous downside, and we see it in athletics a lot in the game of baseball. Would you hit on a couple of them, but you want to talk about some of the cons that you're aware of?
Yeah, definitely the reflecting without action is probably the number one that sticks out to me. Also, being able to reflect on those situations and see the positives in those negative situations as well. I mean, it's not all going to be positive, but typically there's going to be at least one thing or two things in those situations that you can take away and say, okay, I did this well. I'm going to keep doing this well, and I'm going to move forward and adjust on the things that I didn't do well. I think Augie Garrido had one of the best quotes for it, and he was talking about how baseball is not a game of failure, it's a game of opportunity. And I think like having that mindset going into things and being able to kind of stay optimistic but not too optimistic where it's, you're seeing everything through rose-colored glasses, but you're also reflecting and growing from the things that you failed at, and being able to, like we talked about, have a plan moving forward. I think that not being too critical of yourself is definitely going to help you kind of stay away from those cons of reflection.
I'm definitely guilty of being hypercritical of myself, and definitely guilty of overthinking. I'll turn an event over and over in my mind, which then can lead to what we teach our players, which is paralysis from analysis. Yeah. You want to reflect just enough to learn, but it's not so much that it puts up a wall and stops you from what you're trying to do, or stack the next brick, or take the next step. It's 100% like Seneca warned. For the people that listen, I'm a huge Stoicism fan and love studying Stoics. It really lines up with mental performance. It lines up with the sporting world. And Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. If we let ourselves spiral into what ifs and could haves, we always will lose the momentum to move forward.
I like that.
There's a huge danger of negative bias, focusing too much on what went wrong. Reflection should lead to constructive, positive change, not beating you down. And I think that's the hardest struggle that we all deal with when we're trying to reflect, and it ends up being usually a pretty big con.
Yeah.
Because it's the I'm not solid enough at this. I'm not tall enough. I'm whatever. I'm not fast enough. I'm not strong enough. And you just keep reflecting on all the things that you're not, and you endlessly are beating yourself up, versus maybe taking an action plan for things that are within your influence.
Yeah.
You may not be able to affect your height, but you can change things like your speed. You can change things just like your mindset. You can change your belief systems.
Yeah, work ethic.
The ability to work hard. It's a muscle that you learn how to do, and it's really starts. I had somebody the other day ask me, like, Coach, how do I start building confidence? And I didn't really have to think that long about the answer. And it's you keep the promises that you make to yourself. That's how you start to build confidence. It's being genuine and honest with yourself, and then you start making some promises. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat healthy. Whatever it is, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can today in practice. And then that practice comes and you give 100% in practice. When you do that, that's how you build confidence.
Yeah.
And that's where like reflection can help, because you can reflect back and you're struggling, and my math grade's 56% right now. You can reflect and say, well, I didn't study hardly at all over the last 2 weeks. So that's a great reflection, because I can make a actionable plan to move forward. And I think, as we've talked about some of the pros and cons, we want to be able to balance reflection and action. And I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. For me, I like to schedule it. Usually it's about once a week. Usually it's on Sundays. Sometimes our schedules are super weird in the sports world, and sometimes we're on a bus for long hours and things like that. But usually on Sundays, I like to reflect. I'll start with a start, stop, and continue. What I want to start doing, what I want to stop doing, and what I want to continue doing. Yeah. But it's usually it's once a week, and then I'll just kind of dive deep into what I want to get better at. And the overall premise of what I'm trying to replay over and over in my life is, does this make me better?
Yeah.
And I throw that against the wall for everything that I do. And a lot of times I'm getting the no, this does not make me better. And so through that reflection, that helps me say, okay, well, maybe I need to make a little bit of a change here.
Yeah.
How about for you, because I kind of laid out, like my structured way, but how about for you, for trying to balance reflection and action? Do you have any processes that you might use?
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. Typically when it comes to like baseball related reflection, I like to reflect like as soon as practice is done, or even defensively specifically, like if we get through with our NDD session and I really liked something, I'm going right to my notebook as soon as we're done and, putting a star next to it. Or if I didn't like how something ran, or if it wasn't very efficient, I'll go in there and cross it out and put whatever suggestion I had at that time, and then kind of add that into the next practice plan when I'm working on it. As far as just life in general, I try to reflect pretty regularly. Like I said, I've kind of struggled with being where my feet are in the past. So reflection wise, I like to, give gratitude pretty regularly. I could do better about it. I would say probably once or twice every 2 weeks, I send out a text to somebody that's helped me in the past or is currently helping me, and let them know that I'm grateful for everything that they've done for me. And I feel like that really helps me stay centered in where I'm at, and it even if you're having a bad day, you know, it's being able to show what you're grateful for can kind of boost the morale a little bit and help you keep moving forward. So I think that's a huge one for me, is being able to express gratitude to the people that have helped me. But yeah, that's kind of my process with it. It's an evolving process for sure, but that's where I'm at right now.
Pretty solid. I'm a firm believer in gratitude walks and being able to just go out and take a 15 or 20-minute walk where all you're thinking about is the things that you're thankful for.
Yeah.
And being really intentional about that. And sometimes that can be just a walk around the yard. It can be a walk down the sidewalk, or, you know, walk around campus, and really just, that's a reflection in a positive way. So that's a positive pro of reflection, is just going over the things that you're thankful for. And I think we all have a lot of things to be thankful for, and sometimes the negative things overwhelm us and we forget about all the positive things we had. I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk about our spring trip. We just got back from Biloxi, Mississippi, where we stayed, and then we traveled and played some of the top teams in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Mississippi baseball and baseball in the South is much different than it is, you know, in the cold weather states, and it's different in a lot of ways. One of the biggest ways is they get to start their season pretty early, and they've been practicing outside, and typically when we go down there, we are playing our first games of the year.
Yeah.
And typically they're usually 15 to 20 games in. Yeah. And the experience of the season and the flows of playing time and pitchers and everything is somewhat worked out. And it's somewhat of a buzzsaw for our team to go down there every year, because it's really challenging. And we haven't had a season yet where we've left Mississippi with a winning record. But if we were just going down there for the scoreboard and the winning record, then we'd stop going down there.
Right.
We go down there to play some of the best teams in the country so that we do get experience. We find out what we need to work on. And we'll get into the Stockdale paradox and some of the stuff that we've been teaching our team lately with that reflection piece, and the differences between how important realism is and optimism, and balancing those out. What stands out to you when you think about our spring trip of 2025?
Well, like you said, it was very, very different. You know, you go down there and it seems like every guy that they have thrown off the mound is sitting 90. So I mean, you see that every once in a while here in Michigan, but it's every guy that they're rolling out there pretty much in Mississippi.
I think our players had somebody top 98 or 99 on the mound, you know. So yeah, it's definitely different. What else?
Yeah, I think that you kind of you really start to see who has put in the work throughout the off season, and I think that's really cool. You know, it's that invisible growth that we talk about all the time. Pretty consistently, you would see the guys that were putting in the most work, showing up to practice early, leaving late. They're the ones that are out there making the plays. So it's really cool to see that paying off for them. I think that there's always going to be something to learn and grow from those. So I really enjoyed being able to see what we did in a game situation, and, you know, jot notes down as we're going. So I already get a plan rolling before we even leave Mississippi for what we're going to be working on when we get back.
One thing I've been reflecting on is how everyone stepped up during some tough matchups.
Oh, absolutely.
We learned a lot about our defense, and you're pretty much in charge of our defense. That's one of your roles in particular. And we found out kind of where we thrive and then where we need some more work. Any key lessons you plan to carry forward on what you saw down there with the defensive side?
Yeah, I think that just, you know, especially with us being able to get outside right now, I think just hammering out as many reps as possible, and, you know, just preaching to be aggressive, you know,
communicate.
Communicate, and, you know, being one step ahead of where the play is going. I think that's a huge piece, and
being on time, being present,
Yeah.
all those things. And another huge benefit of reflection is those are like carrying points that we're moving forward. We have a very solid defensive team this year, and instead of just not reflecting on it or anything else, we take it and we say things like, well, how can we get better?
Yep.
And from like my perspective, I saw some small injuries that could have been avoided with better preparation, and it's a reminder that reflection isn't just mental, it's physical.
Yeah.
Are we giving our bodies the rest and recovery that they need? Overall, though, it was a great trip. I'm proud of how the team represented our college down there in Mississippi. We spent the week playing more games, and we're currently on a 5-game winning streak. And part of this whole reflection podcast is we're trying to share insights in what we're doing in our program. And we came back with not a great record, but the second best record that we've ever had coming out of Mississippi, which was 3-5. And currently today we're on a 5-game winning streak. And some of the things that we've been teaching our players is the syphilis, pushing the rock up the hill, and and then doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. And then we also started teaching about the Stockdale paradox, where the premise lies with that, the value of striking a balance between realism and optimism. And with the Stockdale paradox, Officer Jim Stockdale was captured in Vietnam, and he was held in captivity for 8 years. And he saw a lot of people that had been captured alongside him have belief systems that they were going to be released by Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving would come and go, and they would not be released. And then they had dreams of that it was going to be Christmas, and Christmas would come and go, and eventually they died of what he said was basically broken hearts. And how he survived for 8 years, which is just absolutely insane, was he combined the realism with this is where I'm at right now, with the optimism of never losing his faith or his belief system. And we try to practice that in our program. We practice it on a daily basis of keeping the belief and the expectation levels really high, but using the realism of this is where we're at right now, and not losing sight of that, and continuing to try to stack bricks to get better. Well, I appreciate you coming in today, and I appreciate all of our listeners. Make winning in life your habit, not your goal. Excellent is not an outcome, it's a daily standard. Our mission is to build athletes and teams that compete at the highest level, not just on game day, but in every aspect of their journey. Build the right habits, lead with intent, and push yourself beyond the limits others set for you. And don't forget to cherish the small moments. They pass by in a blink of an eye. Until next time, keep stacking bricks and go Stars. Coach Cut's Corner is recorded live in the WLNZ studios. Engineering and production assistance are provided by Dedalian Lowry. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it and follow us on all the platforms of social media. You can find more about our program at lccstars.com, and donations to our baseball program can be made at the same site. See you next time.